Earlier this week, Minister of Human Settlements, Mmamoloko Kubayi, launched the Townlands Social Housing Project in Marabastad in Tshwane. It is one of the biggest social housing projects in the country. This development comes as various metros face shrinking housing budgets and pressure as a result of urbanisation and exclusionary property prices. A call has been made for government to adopt inclusionary housing policies, offering private developers incentives for providing well-located and below market rate housing. Joining us now to expand on the concept of inclusionary housing policies is Professor Ivan Turok of the Human Sciences Research Council, and he joins us via our video link. Mr. Turok, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on SABC News. I mean, just looking at that, one would say that, would you say, looking at the housing problems being faced in many metros in this country, is this a step in the right direction?
Well, we have to do much more, and we have to do a range of things. So social housing is part of the solution, but it's not enough. Government's budget is limited at the moment, and so we have to look to the private sector to make a contribution as well. We've got real depth of capabilities in the private sector, and we've got private financial institutions that are doing very well at the moment. We want to skew some of their resources into providing affordable housing for ordinary people. That's the basic idea that I'm putting forward.
And Professor, maybe also expanding a bit, what exactly is inclusionary housing policy?
Inclusionary housing policy is an attempt to deal with the housing crisis by incentivizing the private sector to set aside or contribute some of their housing that they're building for low and middle income groups. That's really at the heart of it. It's a kind of deal. Government saying, we have things we can offer to you, and in return, we'd like to see you contributing to tackle the housing problem.
And when it comes to these incentives, is it clear from government what those incentives will be for private developers?
They can be. At the moment, the government is uncertain whether it wants to go down this road at all. But in principle, and there's a lot of international experience on this, the incentives are very clear. The first and foremost one is that government has very tough planning powers. They can grant development rights to developers, enabling them to build on a large scale. So if government withholds these rights, then that's a big problem for private developers. So the second incentive is the government invests a lot in public infrastructure, and that's also essential for private development. And thirdly, government can streamline some of the red tape to make it quicker, the decisions for planning approval, for approval of building plans, and therefore, again, incentivize the private sector to say, let's take this seriously and see whether we can help to deal with the housing problem.
And Professor, what has been the reception when it comes to that announcement in which we saw from the minister? What has been the reception from private developers? Are they willing to come on board?
It's interesting. It's a very mixed picture, to be honest. So there are a lot of private developers that say, look, actually, we prefer business as usual because change is tricky, is risky. So we'd rather not go down this road. But there are other more enlightened developers who recognize that the private sector also has a contribution to make to housing, affordable housing, and are willing to start talking to government. So really the government must embrace this willingness to cooperate in framing a policy that will allow, particularly municipalities, they're the key players because they have the power over planning, rezoning and building approvals. That's where these deals need to be made, at the municipal level, not at national level.
And how will South Africans and residents actually benefit from this? Because one would say that when you talk about inclusionary housing policies, it really does affect South Africans and affect those who are battling to get affordable homes.
That's right. There will be benefits in terms of more affordable housing stock. But in addition to more housing, the critical point is that these will be better located housing. In the past, we've tended to build a lot of government housing on the periphery of the city. This idea is to say, let's make these projects, let's make this housing really a big part of the core of our cities, closer to employment, closer to public amenities, schools and hospitals and colleges and so on, and very much integrated into existing middle and upper income communities, so that these are not dormitory settlements on the edge of the city. These are very much part and parcel of the urban fabric.
All right, Professor, very interesting topic there, and thank you very much for your time this evening. That is Professor Ivan Turok from the Human Sciences Research Council talking to us there about inclusionary housing policies. Of course, this is something that the Minister of Human Settlements has already touched on speaking in Tshwane earlier this week.